Hello. Hello there. Back so soon. I know. I hadn't made a video in a year, dropped one and now we're back again less than a month after. That's how you know things are not great in my world. I wish I could say I wish I could say differently, but unfortunately a lot of my need for expression comes from a place of having it be therapeutic as opposed to having it be super fun. I mean, it is fun for me to be able to express myself in this way and post it and like talk to you guys in the comments and all that type of stuff. So yeah, that's all good. But I wanted to talk today about my follow up to my plan to quit my job and kind of different options that I have now that I'm CoastFi like pretty solidly. I hit $165,000 the other day, invested in the market since this year has been pretty good. You know, knock on wood, all the tariffs that are coming are probably gonna, I don't know. Trump's ruining our economy in our world. But this isn't about politics, or it's not supposed to be. But yeah, I wanted to talk about just different options. You know, I dropped my podcast in the last video that I did. I linked it in the comment section. And I was listening the other day to one of the episodes, and I think it was my 1 year plan to quit my job. And it was funny because there was no real plan. There was a plan to a committed timeline of like, by the time I turned 29, essentially I'm going to start acting. But then there was no not acting as in like theater, acting as in like I'm going to make the moves to quit my job, blah blah blah. But there was no like real plan as to what the bridge is, what comes next. I was just kind of like, I can do this. And it's true. But that's the easy thing, is like calculating the fact that I could do it. And you know, I am actually happy. I've surpassed my calculations. Even in that video, I said probably by the time I'm 29, like best case, I'll have 150 grand, and I have 165 grand in the market. So I'm like pretty solidly CoastFi. When I look at the CoastFi calculators now, there's room for adjustments and you know, a lot of the different assumptions. Like if I put inflation at 4% instead of 3.5%, like, or even 4.5%, I'm still well into CoastFi. If I adjust inflation to 4% and I change how much money I am going to spend in retirement up by like $5,000 a year, I'm still well within the CoastFi benchmark. So I'm like, okay, like also, I was using, I don't know if it's NerdWallet, or I think it's some independent person, Wallet Burst, I think, that one. They have a pretty conservative table, and maybe I'll link it in the comments, about how much you need to be CoastFi, assuming the worst 35-year return in the S&P 500 history. And looking at that very conservative graph, I am still CoastFi. And that's more like I'm kind of teetering on edge. Like if the market does drop pretty drastically later this year, when all of these shit things go into effect, I could potentially not be CoastFi anymore, or it's like I'm like very much just like on the edge. But in any case, like in most cases, I'm like within the benchmark, and now I have a bit of a margin, so I feel pretty comfortable saying, you know, I am CoastFi, and I'm not quitting my job tomorrow. Yeah. So anyway, talking about, I was missing the bridge to, you know, like what do I actually go to when I quit my job? And so I as a planner, mapped out some of those options, and now we're already 4 minutes in. But I wanted to show you guys just kind of like what I'm thinking. And there's not very specific jobs in here yet, but just the overarching philosophy I've mapped out. And so I am going to need to scroll. And, you know, I didn't think about this because I have to hold the mic, but hold on. What does that look like? Yeah, okay, so you guys can see. I'm in Canva because now they have a whiteboarding feature, which is really nice. But whatever I go to, I just want to start here kind of as this overarching, you know, light, or the overarching principles that make me want to quit. What do I really want out of a CoastFi lifestyle? Well, I want my own schedule. I want less politics. I want time to pursue creative expression. That could be content creation, or it would be great if it could come from the actual money making, part-time job itself, or full-time job. I don't know. So there's that. And then I also just want time to develop the skills I'm actually interested in. And that probably pairs a lot with the creative expression. There's creative skills that I want to develop in design, in video, in podcasting, in content creation, probably, to be honest. So, it's just kind of all, I think that all kind of aligns, I guess, with like starting my own thing, but it doesn't necessarily have to. And so, speaking of, I'll go over to the actual kind of board. So give me 1 second. Yeah. Okay. So, and I'm going to minimize myself just a little bit more. I created this grid. This is kind of like an affinity diagramming exercise, and this is very typical in my field of user experience, but typically you're doing this, or user research, typically you're doing this with themes that you gain from different insights. These themes are from my own heart, basically, that we're mapping out. And I have 2 axes, and I chose effort and happiness, and I did that because, any tactic that I use to achieve the things I have on the right-hand side of the screen, are going to require a different level of effort. If I'm starting something completely new, that's going to rank as higher effort than maybe continuing something that I already have. So like freelancing in my current field is going to be less effort than freelancing in a completely new thing that I have to learn from scratch, for example. But potentially, the thing that I learned from scratch could end up, bringing me a lot of happiness, but it also could not, like if I end up hating it. So it's kind of like, anyway, I just wanted to map those things because the effort can vastly change versus like going part-time in my field would probably be less effort than, starting something completely new. But I also kind of want to try something new because I've been in this field for 5 years and I'm like, the job prospects are, I don't know, not amazing. And then the other thing is happiness. And that happiness piece is more so aligned with the things on the right-hand side. So how much from each little sticky note is a tactic. From each tactic, do I get closer to the things on the right-hand side? Okay. The other thing to note, and I need to, let's get rid of that. And let me zoom in a little bit more. Opposite way. So, and I know I'm not expecting you to read this yet. I'm going to zoom in a lot more on the individual tactics in a second. But the other thing to note is the color coding. So the yellow sticky notes pertain to tactics that involve me staying at my current employer in some way, shape, or form. The purple tactics are staying in my field. Well, really, no. The purple tactics are working for a new employer, but still being employed, not starting my own thing. And then the blue ones align to starting my own business. So you can kind of see this zoomed out view. The blue tactics are generally higher effort, and that makes sense, right? Because starting a new thing, not necessarily starting a new thing, but like working for yourself requires a lot. It requires sometimes opening an LLC. Managing your own taxes, the biggest thing I think is building a clientele or building an audience. So all of those things are going to be really high effort, but I do think they also, a lot of the times, besides this one blue sticky note, which we'll get to later in the video, but I think a lot of those have the best options for a return on your happiness as well. It's just another dimension that would be nice to map here, but I don't have like a 3D option, would be time. The blue ones I think have the highest potential for happiness, but I think they also a lot of the times will require the longest amount of runway to see any kind of potential return from. So in any case, let's start going into the individual let's start going into the individual tactics, and we'll work from left hand to right hand side. So we'll start with low happiness and get into high happiness. And we'll start kind of like, you can think about these quadrants as the bottom or the top left would be low happiness, high effort. Those are the things I'm probably going to want to avoid, right? Why would I do something that is not going to make me marginally happier and going to take up a lot of, resources and my energy? So actually, should we start there? Maybe we start there, because we'll want to avoid the top left quadrant, and what we would love is the bottom right quadrant, and low effort and potential for high happiness. And then obviously the top right quadrant is, how high effort gonna, cost a lot up front, but then potential to be like the happiest. And then the bottom left is like marginal improvements in my happiness, but low effort. So like I can probably make those moves sooner rather than later, and they're going to be more reliable and make me marginally happier, but they're not really going to move the needle in terms of what I'm really looking for. So, okay, I think we spent enough time in this zoomed out view. Let's do the quadrant by quadrant basis and zoom in. So, starting with this gross quadrant, the top left, low happiness, high effort, let's zoom in. Okay, so the first tactic, part-time work in the same organization, but switching to a different role. The thing here is, working part-time gives me more control over my schedule, right? I don't know what that would look like. And the thing is I don't know if it's possible. In my current role, it's probably not possible, but in a different role, this would require a new role to open, right? And we are seeing like less and less jobs open up, even in my own organization. So there's a lot of unknowns, and not a lot I can control in this regard. But I'm sure I would have an in my own organization, better than starting, somewhere else and like applying to a job board. So I do think that maybe if a role opened up and I was willing to go part-time, that's probably something I could negotiate. And of course, I'd have more leverage at my own organization applying to a role as opposed to applying somewhere else. So it's kind of like, the thing is though, like the culture of my organization is like honestly so bad. And my organization is really big, so I don't know how far it extends, but I've connected with people. So I work in membership acquisition marketing. I have talked to young people in tech roles, like exclusively tech roles. I've talked to people in public relations, and all of them are miserable. I have not met a single young person in this organization, except for data analytics. The data analytics team seems to like have a good time, and that kind of makes sense because I'm like, I feel like there's not as much politics in data analytics. Maybe there is, I don't know, but they always seem to just be like, well, here's your data, ran the analysis, here you go. Like, I don't think they typically, like in marketing, it's more of an art. You have to make a case, you have to make an argument, and you have to have your hand in a lot of cookie jars. So it's like, it is kind of a very stressful field that I'm in, but it's also really exciting and really engaging. And when it goes right, it's really rewarding. So it's kind of a high risk, high reward thing. So I think I could potentially go into a less stressful role and maybe negotiate part-time in the organization. But, again, how much do I want to fight for that, knowing that the misery, it's a wide organizational problem and seems to be a generational difference that I'm not sure, I don't have any evidence suggesting that I would do better in any other team besides data analytics, and I don't have training in data analytics. So don't know how realistic that is. So that's that option. And that's why I kind of ranked it high effort, because I'm like, I don't even really know if the opportunity exists, and it would require a lot more research on my part. But then, interviewing and completely starting in a new team environment and learning a new role from scratch. So that's why it's high effort. The second one that's pretty distinctly in this category is upskilling at my in this quadrant is upskilling at my current employer, and within my current role. That should also say that. And the reason that this is here is that I work at a very large organization, and they are well resourced. And one of our benefits is tuition reimbursement. So I get, it's not a lot considering the cost of school, but it's still something. They give us $8,000 a year if you enroll in a credible organization. There's a bunch of stipulations. It has to apply to your current role, but I was actually already approved. I just never pulled the trigger, and I would have to reapply at this point because I never used it. But I could do a user experience role that is more focused towards design, so that I could make a bridge to get into the design field. The reason this is such high effort is because, I would have to stay at the organization for an additional 2 years. That's part of the program. To get trained in design, I would have to stay at the organization for another 2 years. And I'm telling you guys, I hate this organization. I love the mission of the organization. I'm just so disconnected to it, from it. And the culture is just really bad. And so I'm like, do I want to commit 2 more years of misery for the sake of getting some free education that, honestly, I'm like, if I had a design portfolio, would I even need an education? You know what I mean? If I wanted to be a UX designer. But the thing is, I'm like, I would need to actually design. I don't know. I'm like, how do I get the portfolio if I'm not in school? I don't think my current employer would let me design. And I know, do your own projects, redesign a website of a website you love to go to a lot. How would you make it better? I know I could do that type of stuff. So if I was really passionate about it, I could. So, I mean, it is an option. But again, if I wanted to do that, I would have to do that at my current employer full time. And I'm so exhausted by the end of the day that I typically don't have energy to do much of anything. So, this option doesn't excite me as much. And that's why it's on this left hand of happiness, or left side of the happiness axis, and high effort. Because I would have to learn, a new skill from scratch, and I would have the resources to do it, but it would also take a really long time and require me to sign up for more misery. So there you go. Next, I know I have this blue one here and I have this purple one here, but I don't want to go into it yet. Because those aren't squarely in any quadrant, because I have unknowns for them. So I'm going to go over the this bottom left quadrant now. So low happiness, but low effort. And then I'll do the ones that aren't in any quadrant specifically. So this bottom left one here, low happiness, but the probably easiest one to achieve is just check out. Just quiet quit, right? Just stop. Just stop caring. The thing about this is I get more depressed when I do this. When I am not... Oh, I'm saying I'm screaming into the mic. I hope that's not true. But it's really hard for me to completely check out. It's not in my nature. I am a high achiever, and when I have no problems to solve, even if they're really annoying ones, I get more depressed. When I worked for the government, right before I was laid off and I got this job that I'm in now, that also isn't great. That was kind of the opposite of this role. In this role, I'm kind of burnt out because we're not adequately staffed, and I know I just said they're heavily resourced, and they are in some ways, but the thing is they don't propagate the resources appropriately to make us effective in our jobs. So I wear a ton of different hats, and I kind of burn out frequently because I care. A part of it is because I acquiesce, and I'm just okay, I'll do it because it's a challenge. This is my work is important to me, so I can either take the reins, take control, and get this shit done the way that I want it to be done, or I can let other people who don't give a fuck, who are actively working to spite people because the politics are so bad, take control of the project. And there's a lot of politicking involved, and you have to get involved in the politics if you want any chance at owning your work. and it's unfortunate. But because there are no clearly defined roles and responsibilities, everyone steps on each other's toes. Everyone's looking for their piece of the limelight. And the only way that this is a complete tangent, but the only way that I have been able to really take any ownership in what I do and have any pride in the work that I do that justifies my reason to go to this place every single day that I hate, is that I get to own my work. Like the only way, sorry, I did not complete that sentence right. The only way I've been able to achieve ownership of my work is I invest my time, resources, and energy into a bunch of these skills that people deem to be too good to learn. I learned how to use our CMS, which also, girl, we are 10 to 15 years in the past, a digital organization. Well, we're not purely digital, but like our digital teams don't know how to use a content management system. I was doing this like 10 years ago. Anyway, but yeah, I learned how to publish stuff in our CMS. I learned how to do all these essentially like tertiary functions that allow me to be really flexible in getting what I need to get done. I'm also like pretty adequate in analytics and reporting. I'm not an expert, so I'm not doing like data analysis. Like I'm not doing like models. I'm not doing model work. I'm just looking at the data as it exists and saying what happened, like more ad hoc type of stuff. With intention, like I set up tests and then, I read the results, like, and that's all intentional, but it is still like, this is what I'm analyzing something that already happened. I'm not like doing predictions or, stuff like that or forecasting. But yeah, long tangent. But doing all of that stuff causes me to burn out because it's a lot of work and a lot of tertiary functions in addition to like just what what my deliverables are on a day-to-day basis. But it allows me to actually take ownership over my work and like actually have a stake in what I'm doing and actually be able to say, this is mine and this is what I deliver to the table. And it's worked well for me. Like I'm very well respected in my organization now, but I also hate this place. So it's funny. It's like, I'm kind of at the top to where I'm like, okay, I finally at least have the resources and the respect to do my job, but it's still awful. So I'm just like, I'm kind of like, why was I fighting in the first place? So anyway, long tangent, but I could just check out and quiet quit. And if I did that, I just don't see myself doing that. But maybe it's coming because now I'm kind of like, okay, I finally get the respect that I need. I'm finally able to like, publish my own work. And oh, this video is already 22 minutes long. That's okay. Maybe I don't have, I don't know. Like there's nowhere else to go from here. If I do not get like happy soon, which I highly doubt that I will, it's like, okay, then what, like, why is this worth burning myself out every day? And spoiler alert, it's probably not, but I'm probably going to like learn that lesson within my own body very soon. And then maybe I will just check out and quiet quit because there'll be nothing left, but we'll see. The next sticky here is part-time work, same org and role. So I could, in theory, negotiate with my boss. Hey, please let me work part-time. Hey, dude, please let me work part-time. I don't see this happening. And because the structure of my role, again, it's so kind of like holistic. I just don't know if I would be able to achieve the same amount of work in the same amount of like not the same amount of time because it'd be a different amount of time. I just don't know if the organization would be open to that, but it's something I could bring up. I'm just scared to negotiate it without having like, I don't know what my reason for that would be. Just like, hey, I'm burnt out. It wouldn't be, well, don't go part-time. It would be, let's, talk about like responsibilities and stuff. But like, again, it's systemic reasons. If responsibilities of mine were to be taken away, I would lose control over my own agency. I mean, I guess that's what losing control is, but like I would lose control over, I think, the quality of my work because it would depend on people that don't really know what they're doing. And I would be really unhappy with the result of a project and be like, well, why am I even working on this if we're doing it in this way that doesn't make any sense? So I don't know. I could fight for part-time work though, because honestly, it's like, I'm not working 8 hours a day. I'm not. And no office worker really is. But I just feel like I need leverage to go into that conversation and be like, this is what you get from me working part-time, but I don't really have an answer. So anyway, but that is an option, and I am considering it. This third one, and the reason why it's not happiness is because I'm like, okay, I could potentially get, a lot more time back in my day, and then I could use that time to do more content creation, do more things that I'm passionate about, but I'm still within that same depressing, repressive, oppressive organizational culture. And if I was part-time, I'd probably lose out on some of the socialization and stuff that I get. Not that it's amazing at this job. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd definitely lose pay. I'd lose a lot of pay. But at this point, again, I'm CoastFi. I don't need the pay. Yeah, it's not adding anything new to my life. So, but it might be unjustified. I might actually bump this up a little bit. I think this might actually be right around here, to be honest. Okay, this last one, full-time work, same org and different role. Yeah. So again, my organization is so big. They do have job postings. I could hop to a different one of those jobs, which I already mentioned earlier with the part-time one. This is just the full-time version of that. I wouldn't be as happy because I wouldn't be gaining any time freedom, right? So that kind of explains that. And then let's go over these sticky notes, this blue one and this purple one that are like right in the middle. So something where I'm basically saying with this, I don't know how happy I would be. Like, it's a complete kind of unknown. And the top one, freelancing a new job, and I put in parentheses notary there because I've been considering becoming a notary public in my state, and the more I'm researching it now, I already paid for the exam and I passed, and I would just have to now pay the registration fee and swear an oath to the Secretary of State, I think, or the office of the Secretary of State. But the more I look into it, the more I'm like, oh, like this is like not helpful. It is not lucrative enough. And it sounds like the industry is kind of like when I worked in the translation industry, it feels actually quite similar. And we actually had notaries in the translation industry because if the client is not English speaking, they had to get it translated into English and then get it notarized by a notary. And in that business, the translation business, it was kind of a race to the bottom of the market. And from all of the from all the notary online forums I'm seeing, the platformatization, I don't think that's a word, but kind of like the platformatization of these services, like kind of like freelance networks, like Fiverr and stuff like that. There are kind of equivalents specifically for notaries, but it's a higher barrier to entry because anyone can be a freelancer on Fiverr offering pretty much any service. But for a notary, there's payment involved to get started. You have to understand some legal stuff, and you obviously have to take exams, and you have to actually go to like your circuit court, and like you have to testify sometimes. So it's like there's a higher barrier to entry there. But at the end of the day, it seems like there are these platforms that are finding, these people, these notary publics, and they are sending out bids, and then companies will work with these, intermediary companies that send out these bids to the notary public freelancers, and they lowball them. And most buyers are now using these platforms instead of going to the freelancers directly and working with them outside a platform, because the platforms can get them the cheaper rate, because the platforms create this horrible competition in the market and entice newbies who just kind of like deflate their value, and then establish relationships with clients and these boards where their fee is super low, and then it's really hard for them to like get out of that because the market is like flooded with a bunch of new people that are offering low rates and really screwing over kind of what the real market value is of the service. And so again, now I'm going into a bunch of tangents, but like my point being, if I'm going to freelance something, it should probably be a skill that I already have, instead of, learning something new, learning the entire market of that, learning how to market myself in that as a new professional in it too. Like, there's a lot working against you. However, and it's also kind of a mixed bag of like, what if I get my first gig and I'm like, oh, I fucking hate this? Because it is like, it's legal documents and it's attention to detail. And I have learned to acquire those skills, but it's not like, I'm a creative at heart. I'm a creative, and this is like kind of the opposite of being a creative. Like, this would allow me to have a part-time gig that at least allows me to set my own schedule to give me the time to then do my creative stuff on the side. But the thing is, would I even have my own schedule? Going back to the stuff on the right-hand side, this is gig work. I would have to take gigs as they come up. And, you know, an advantage might be, if this is my only job, I could do it nights, weekends, odd times that probably offer higher pay, and use like daily Monday through Friday, or, you know, what have you, to do my creative stuff. So like it might line up, but it's really just a complete mixed bag. So I don't know where it's going to align on the happiness scale, but I sure as hell know it's going to be you know, a lot of effort. So that's why I ranked it there. I think there's and you know, a notary is just one example. There's other stuff I could put in there too, like being a freelance UX designer. You know, I do have experience in UX, but not specifically in design. So that's another thing where I'd have to start completely but like I'd have to learn a skill pretty much from scratch, and then learn how to market myself against, you know, people who have been doing this forever. Okay, and then this purple sticky note about same job, new employer. This, I don't even, like, this is also complete mixed bag. Like, I don't know where it's in happiness or effort, because I think effort is in general kind of low if I'm doing it passively. But if I were to like quit my job because I'm just burnt the fuck out, and then I'm just applying for the same type of job at a new employer, I've seen the job market right now for full-time white collar jobs, especially as it relates to tech. And like UX isn't tech exclusive, but I think a lot of the jobs are in tech, or because it's like, you know, digital products, because those companies are making digital products, and the job market's bad right now. So I'm like, that's a complete black hole. And why would I leave my job just to try and do the same thing somewhere else in a bad market? It's true. I've been at a job before where I actually really liked the company culture and the work. There were dark parts to it too, but one of the startup environments that I worked at was like pretty decent. And I mean, they just laid off half their workforce, but that's the risk, right? And so like, you just never know really what you're signing up for when you sign an offer with a new employer. Like, you don't really truly know what the culture is going to be like. You can interview people that are there, but you just never, you know, you just never truly know. So in any case, that's why I'm like, complete mixed bag. You know, I could be happier somewhere else. I could be much worse somewhere else. I don't know. It could take, you know, 2 months to get a job. It could take a year. Like, there's so much uncertainty in the full-time white-collar job market right now. It's just hard to know. I'm going to take a sip of iced coffee, and this is going to be like an hour-long video, so yeah, girl, buckle up. Okay. So let's see. What do we want? We want to end with this one, so let me go up here and talk about these two. All right, so freelancing the same job in CRO or UX. I have actually already created a Fiverr profile and set up a gig around this, and I already need to make some edits. My impressions are super low. The thing is, this is higher effort because you need to build up a client base. If I were to actually do this, you know, as like my main source of income, one, I don't think that's actually super reliable. But I can charge more because it's a white collar service. And I was looking at the work that, you know, other freelancers are doing, and I could probably I could afford to charge between $150 to $200 for a gig on the low end of things, and upwards of like $500 to $700 for like a really in-depth type of UX and conversion rate optimization report. So like the money is there. If I got, you know, 4 of those mid-tier gigs like per month, you know, $2,000, you know, that does not include that money. I would also need, you know, I would need more than that for taxes. So I pretty much need to bring in like $2,500 to $2,700 for taxes, and or not for taxes, to replace, not replace my income. I mean, I'm bringing in like $7,000 a month right now at my white collar big kid job. Ew, I hate that I said that. I revoke that. That was infantilizing to freelance, which is like what I'm trying to get into. But yeah, I would need, more than that, because you need to set aside 30% for taxes when you're doing it yourself. So if I really wanted to do that, I'd probably need a little over $3,000 just net to be able to, or gross. Yeah, net, I think, is taking out tax. Whatever the fucking term is. I would need like over $3,000 kind of like gross just to be able to, I think, maintain kind of, and not maintain my current lifestyle. Like this would be cutting back of like my spare kind of like throwaway money for, not throwaway, but like indulgence money, my guilt-free spending. That's already like $300 subtraction. But then you also have to think, I would need to get my own healthcare in a freelance world. So that's adding like $300. Anyway, I could go into like I'll probably go into like the budget of those kind of freelance options another time. But I've pretty much like worked out, I'll need a little bit north of $3,000 per month to make it on my own doing something. And it's not a lavish lifestyle, but I don't need that because I'll have time freedom. You know what I mean? So anyway, what are we saying? This is why this is all high effort. Because like, let alone, it's probably going to take a while just to get my first gig. You never know, right? Like it could take not as much time as I'm thinking, but it could take a lot more. And it's going to take probably a while to build up a recurring kind of client base. And these types of services, typically you're not seeing the same client come back, a ton. So I could create more gigs of stuff that I'm used to. Maybe I could create gigs around creating budgets for people. But the finance stuff, I feel like I need to do research about what's out there. But that's kind of risky to me, is like, and this would go under the freelance new job kind of category anyway. But I'd have to determine what my product is. I would have to make sure that the legal stuff about offering financial advice online is okay. Like, how do I give a budget and then not be like, this is not financial advice, but here's how I'd recommend you spending your money. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm sure there's a fine line to walk with that. But in any case, like doing what I do now, the CRUX stuff, it translates to an easy business model. I know how to do it. It's just a matter of building up the client base. So, and I think I think this is higher on the happiness side because it would right a lot of the wrongs that I experience right now in my own industry, right? Like it would eliminate the politics because it would just be me and the client. It would allow me to do the job in the way that I want to, and it allows me to work when I want to, because there will be a due date for the clients. Don't get me wrong. And especially when you're working on, these platforms like Upwork and Fiverr, whatever. Again, the platformatization of freelance, I feel like, is killing freelancers. But not to mention that these platforms take their own fee, right? Like off the top. So it's like, I'd even have to make more than that 33 or 3,100, whatever. I'd have to make 20% more. So it's really like 50% more. You have to make 50% more than initially probably what you think, because 30% for taxes, 20% for the platform. So you have to charge 1.5 times what it should be. But then you also need to be competitive. But the market's so flooded, it makes prices cheap. Cray. But yeah, for all of those reasons, the competitiveness of the market and getting a recurring client base, that's why that's still high effort, but then potentially rewarding, And then lastly, content creation. Now, this is pretty much highest effort along with freelancing a new job, just because it's not as high effort because I already know how to do it. The barrier to entry is low, but it's the same thing about building a client base. It's building an audience. And I have an audience here. I have 300 loyal subscribers, which is awesome. I was not expecting my last video to get 100 views. Like, that makes me so happy. But I would have to create, a lot more content, a lot more recurring, and I can do that. But, unless I do something drastic, like quit my job, I'm like, I don't know. The last time I went viral, and it wasn't even viral, it was like medium amount viral, was my Dave Ramsey video. And that did not do well because I'm criticizing Dave Ramsey, although I don't have a lot of points. And so it's really an ideological difference. And then it didn't do well because Dave Ramsey was in the target, keywords of that video. And so a lot of Dave Ramsey and conservative people were in the thread being like, oh, so you want to go on his show and then like shit on him after? And I was like, well, yes, I do. Like I did, because anyway, I won't go on a tangent because he does suck, but he's also one of the only creators that has everyday people go on their show. And that has expanded a lot since now. I know like Bigger Pockets does a lot of that now. And there are other financial kind of like podcasty type things that do that. But, at the time, he was really one of the only ones that was doing it. So unless you were like a business person trying to sell your book about finance or whatever, then you can be on whatever podcast you fucking want, I guess. But, or if you're a professional in the field, but just everyday people talking about their financial situations, that was not really a thing, like 5-ish years ago. So in any case, I would love to do content creation, and, I just think it's going to take a long time, and I don't know. I definitely wouldn't quit my job until I'm monetized. And I think the requirements for monetization has changed also and gotten stricter just because the barrier to entry, like it's a flooded market. So, but I also think, I would have complete control over like what I do creatively, what I talk about, how I interact with you guys. I think it would bring me a lot of happiness, and it's something I've wanted to do since I was little. I've always put myself out there online since I was 13, but I kind of have a follow-through problem. I kind of quit stuff when it doesn't, but here's the thing, I'm like, when it doesn't serve me anymore, right? Like that's kind of when I stop. And so, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but yeah, I'm like, if I'm onto a different creative project, I typically stop talking about it. So yeah, and like there's just such an oversaturation of like monetary type stuff, like financial advice content on the internet, that like I lost inspiration. And I have multiple videos on that, including my last one. And I literally made a video called Why I Stopped Making Finance Content. So anyway, but now it's cool because I'm like, here's how the money creates the lifestyle that I want. So this is like re-inspiring me to create content, and I think it makes sense. Okay, and then this last sticky note, this is theoretically the best quadrant, right? Oh shit, whoops. This is like in theory the best quadrant, like higher happiness, low effort. Part-time version of the same job for a new employer. Now, this isn't very sexy to me. It's not, this does not excite me, but like logically graphing it out is helping me realize how valuable like this step could be for me. I'll get out of the toxic company culture. I would start fresh, with someone else, and kind of be able to set boundaries up front of like, I'm working part-time, you're getting this out of me only these days a week. And it wouldn't like cause a fundamental shift in my department or have me leave other people hanging because I'm burnt out or whatever. Like I would get to start from scratch, and I would get to leave a toxic environment, and I would keep up my skills in UX, and have more time to work on like potentially the freelancing side of things to eventually own my own business. And create content, right? Like I could do both of those kind of work streams together. So that's where I'm like, okay, maybe this is kind of the most viable path forward. I don't think it's not going to make me a lot happier all at once, but it might be the most realistic path forward that would move the needle on my engagement and happiness on an everyday kind of standpoint, and still, probably allow me to be on health insurance and, get paid probably like reasonably well. So that's where I'm like, this is probably the most realistic, but this is about building bridges, right? And I feel like that's not sexy. You want to jump over the gap to the exciting thing, right? But the whole point of building financial security is that you have runway, and de-risk. And so I'm like, I'm still a risk averse person. So like, I should probably just build the bridge instead of trying to like jump over the gap. So I'm thinking the other problem with this one is like the freelancing stuff. It makes me feel in control because it's like I have to do something. Like I felt so good about completing that notary course, and then I did more research, and I was like, oh, they're actively being taken advantage of. Like the outlook for this market it's not great. Like I definitely can't make a full-time income doing it. I could, if I get so burnt out, potentially do some notarization work just to cover like my rent, but still have to take out of my FU money fund, which is what it's for, right? Like there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but it wouldn't be a direct bridge. It'd be like, this is still a finite thing because the notary work won't cover, my full living expenses. So it's not like it's still not a sustainable solution, but it would give me a lot more runway to do the creative stuff. Like if I was a notary and could at least get my like rent covered, or I say rent, my portion of the mortgage, basically, even though I don't own the house. So it is rent for me. If I could like at least cover my rent, that'd probably give me close to another year. And I have over a year. I have 18 months of expenses saved up right now, but I want to keep 6 months of that as an emergency because during my, year sabbatical, if I were to quit, I could have also an emergency, and I won't be as on good of healthcare. It's probably going to have a really high deductible. So all that to say, I'll need that 6 months emergency fund in the same time frame as the sabbatical. If I do take one and quit my job without something lined up that can take care of all of my expenses. So I really basically have 12 months. So again, all of that to say, if I had a part-time version of my like current job now, I would likely make enough from that part-time salary to cover all of my living expenses because I live in a low cost of living city. Again, I probably need $3,000 a month, $3,000 a month net in this case, because I'd probably be still W-2, just part-time, and then like my taxes would be taken out. But again, I make $10,000 a month now gross, so. Oh, excuse me. If I were to make, I could probably earn half that I do now, go down like a tax bracket and make like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I could make I make 120 now. I could make 60K and have over $30,000, per year from taxes. 'Cause that would be 40%, and I'm definitely not in a 40% tax bracket. So, yeah. Anyway, all of that to say, part-time of this, if I'm able to find something, I think, could work and help me build that bridge. So, yeah, that's everything. This video is really fucking long. So thank you so much just for, listening to myself, to kind of just recap, basically the two paths that I think I'm going to be most likely to pursue are these ones that I just enhanced. So freelancing my same job, probably and content creation, because I can do that while I'm doing all this other stuff. So I can kind of bold that too, or make it bigger too. But probably going to apply to part-time versions of the job that I have now at a new employer and just kind of see what happens, like kind of passively as I'm applying. At the same time, trying to grow my conversion rate optimization business, and reach out to different platforms and try and network for clients there, and make videos about all of this stuff. So that's kind of the rough plan. If I don't get any traction on this stuff, or I feel like I'm just not able to really devote my time to building this stuff, then maybe I'll go back to where is she? This one, part-time work, same Oregon role. Then maybe that's when I'll negotiate with my boss and just be like, hey, listen, I can't do this no more, my guy. And I honestly might be pretty close to that. So in any case, it's exciting that there are so many options. I do want to iterate, like, because I'm CoastFi, I have all of these options and probably more that I'm not even, thinking about. I mean, there are definitely, I do have so many options, but to really get to what I want on on this right hand side here, like of course I could like work as a barista again. But guess what? I've worked as a barista for many years and I don't like it. I don't want to go back into food service. I just don't. Like it's really hard work. It's gross work and the public is generally mean. So, I don't really want to go back into it. The whole point of CoastFi is to be able to pursue things that you want. And for me, especially working for a different employer part-time, I'm not going to get my own schedule. I'm likely not going to be treated better. I'm probably going to be treated worse. There's probably going to be stupid workplace politics. I'm probably going to be burnt out from that, even if it's part-time, because my schedule's always shifting. So I'll feel like I have no control and that I don't even make a lot of money doing it. So it's just like, I think these are kind of the best options for now. Continue to grow freelance, try and find a new part-time job in the same field, and make videos while I do it. And I guess that's a bit frustrating to me because it's just like not the sexy, exciting thing. But I do think it's the most realistic. So thank you so much for watching. And hopefully I'll have an update. Well, I will. I'll make an update soon. Okay. Bye.